Hello and welcome to the second episode of the Big Strong Girls Club podcast. I am not on my own today. I actually have our very first guest, which is Miss Rachael Harland. She has been one of the absolute OGs of the Big Strong Girls Club since we started, and she's been one of my personal clients for the last 2 years. So I am very happy to have her on, and actually if it wasn't for Rachael, this podcast wouldn't exist. Hello.
Oh, that's nice.
Well, we sat down not too long ago, and it was when we were at Lift, was it?
Maybe.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it was.
Yeah, casually on the leg press, and you were like, why have you not got a podcast? And I was like, because I've not got enough hours in the day. That would be why. And here we are. We now have a podcast. We're now on the second episode of a podcast, which is interesting. So I basically want you to explain a bit about you, what you do as a job, and hobbies outside of when you're not here with us.
Okay, so I'm Rachael, as Amy nicely introduced. I work in employee experience research, which I don't know is that exciting, but it's a division of market research, I guess. So if you work at a big company and you get like a job satisfaction survey, then we might have had a hand in that. It's that kind of thing, like, why do you love your job kind of stuff. Hobbies, I mean, outside of the Big Strong Girls Club, right? I like going to concerts, I like meeting up with friends, seeing family, traveling is a massive one, as you know. Yeah, kind of it.
Just to point out, this is also the same lass that came into the studio one day and went, oh, guess what? I entered a competition and I've won tickets to the Olympics. So I'm just casually jetting off to Paris for a weekend.
That was
just
ace.
To go watch some sport.
That was so awesome. Yeah, that was unexpected. That was like fusing the fitness side of things and the travel. It was great.
Yeah, that's a nice crossover.
I know.
Very jealous though. Like, all expenses paid trip, just... I'm going out for a weekend, like, I'll be back soon. Like, you can watch my Instagram for my updates.
Yeah, just chilling.
So, the main gritty that I want to get to inside of today's episode is your journey, your experiences, and the lessons and challenges that you've been through, especially in, like, the last 2 years that we've been working together, or just slightly over. So... if we cast our minds back to around 2 years ago now...
It feels forever
ago. Yeah, it does. What did life look like for Rachael 2 years ago?
Before we met?
Yes.
I guess, well, always struggling with weight. Let's go straight to that point. So always struggling, and I'd get in like a mindset where I'd be like, I want to get fit now. And then I'd be like... you know what? I love myself as I am. I'm fine. And then
We've all been there.
Yeah. And then I'd be like, no, I really need to get fit. And I think, like after my dad died in 2018, that was when I started to be like, I need to be more conscious of my health, and I want to just feel better. And like probably as we can all resonate with the pandemic.
Oh yeah.
It just like... I think it nearly killed us all off, man. If it wasn't just for mental health, like physically, it took a toll on everyone, right? Mm-hmm. So I think particularly with me, I was at a different job at working like daft hours, like 15-hour days, like, and when the heck do you get to go up and like grab a walk, or when are you not grabbing for something that's sugary or to give you an energy boost or whatever? And like my weight just rocketed in that time, and I felt crap after that. And weirdly, it was only when I then went back and like met people, like friends, and then we had a photo together, and I was like, oh my God. And I don't
Sweet
think
Jesus.
and I don't think I realized, and I was like, oh my God, I look awful, I feel awful. And I'd never been able to kind of stick to something. And then I think it was my brother, because he's like gone through this massive weight loss, like huge transformation. And I was like, good on you. I can't do that. Like there's no way I could dedicate the time that he could, or the willpower to that. And then he said when he was at Coach that you were one of the PTs there. And I was like, oh, like Amy sounds right up my street. It sounds great. And because he'd done so well having a PT, I thought, yeah, this is the kick up the arse I need, basically. And that was it. Yeah, I found you.
The start of the beginning. So what do you think was your penny drop moment within that, where you thought enough's enough?
Oh, that's a difficult one. I think it was more like I had like massive, I still do to some extent, you know that, but like health anxiety is like a huge thing for me. And I've got PCOS, and that has always negatively impacted me. And it seems that no matter what you do, you just can't get anything right with it. It's the worst thing. But yeah, I think that was the penny drop, to be like, right, even if I can't look as I want to, or like the TV tells me I need to look, I want to feel better in myself. And that was that kind of moment where I was like, right, let's do something. I'd signed up to the gym, so that was already like a tick for me. And I was doing stuff, but I was like, I don't know what I should be doing. Do you know what I mean? Just like mindlessly cycling away on a static bike. It just wasn't getting me anywhere.
Just kind of throwing like shit at the wall to see what sticks, really. And if that doesn't work, just kind of going back to the drawing board a little bit. I get it.
Yeah, so just nothing was working at that point, and like shy of starving myself and trying to feel better that way, which also wasn't working. I was like, right, I've got to make a change now.
Awesome. So in the last 2 years then, if you were to give whoever's listening the 3 biggest things that you've learned about yourself, or the 3 biggest tips that you could give people that are potentially where you were 2 years ago, what 3 things, or even 2 things, would you say have made the biggest impact from who you were then to where you are now?
God,
Sorry,
that's
put you on the spot.
I know. I think the first one is don't doubt yourself. Because the first thing for me was like, it was always a case of, no, I can't do that. Like, like other people or those gym bods or whatever, that's not me. And yeah, it was just like, you've just got to go for it. And when you have that moment, that penny drop moment, you've just got to seize it and run. Because like I'd had so many of them, and like I said, it lulls again, and you're like, no, I'm fine, this is me. And but then when I started to really run with it, like I have never stuck at something so long as I have
with this.
So that's the first one. The second one is that weights are for women too.
Yes, love that.
Because I'd walk into the gym and I'd look at the weight section, it's just meatheads, like men everywhere. And you look at it and you're like, oh, but I can't do that. Or they're all going to look at me, or, no one cares in the gym. And I think that was a big learning as well. However, like through that whole experience, I found a community of women who were in the same mindset. And if I hadn't kickstarted that journey initially, I wouldn't be here, right? So, and sticking to something. And then probably the third thing is like, you're not by yourself in your journey, because you can, when you're like just sitting there by yourself mulling over it, you can feel like you are the only one in the world that's experiencing this right now, and that's just not the case. And like when you branch out, you'll be surprised who you meet on your journey
and how common it actually is, especially in this day and age.
Exactly.
I think collectively, like as I said on the last episode, like the conversations that we have in here are becoming more and more common because there's so many people now together having the same issues, or they've come from the same background, or they've experienced the same things. And especially when we've all mostly grown up in sort of like the same age bracket, and we've been through like the same sort of diet culture, like it is a collective shared experience.
Oh my God. I watched something back, right? I know this is how our conversations go.
Go
I'll
for
just
it.
railroad something. But like, what was it? It was on like a Millennials channel.
Yeah, I remember you telling me about this.
Yeah, it was on like a Millennials channel, which is my era. And I was like, oh my God. Like, I can't believe the stuff that used to be on telly. And it was stuff about, like, it was fat shaming.
Oh, is this the thing with Victoria Beckham where she was on like that old chat show and they got her to weigh live on TV? Yeah, I remember
There's
this.
that, and then it was like, it was just
Special K diet.
Yeah, it was like horrendous adverts. And you know, like there was like a catwalk thing with Naomi Campbell.
Oh Christ, what's that called
Or
now?
some sort of model house. I don't know.
Yeah.
I did not watch that.
Yeah, I know.
Britain's
I know
Best
what you
Model,
mean.
I don't know. But like in that house, like somebody walked in and they were like, I don't know, a size like 8 or something.
They called the plus size.
Like, yeah.
America's Next Top Model. I know what you're talking about now.
And it was and I was like, what? And there was somewhere on like Pop Idol or something equivalent, might be X Factor or something. And a girl walks on and they're like, oh, you've got a fantastic voice, but you just don't look the part. And she's like, I know, I'm really trying to lose weight. And no wonder we've got this kind of mindset that we have now because of how it was back then. And I mean, social media now is incredibly damaging for that kind of thing still. And it's more prevalent probably than ever before. But yeah, I mean, what a place to start. I mean, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, growing up as a teenager in that sort of demographic, like, you were damned if you did and you're damned if you don't, really.
Yep.
Because you were either too thin or you were too fat and there was just no middle ground in the slightest.
Yeah. I mean, like from like as long as I can remember, probably like since I hit puberty, and that explains the PCOS side of things. But like my weight just went up and kept going, and there was nothing I could do to bring it down. And I laugh because I look back at old school reports and it was like, Rachel loved PE. It was her favourite project. And I was like, what? Like, to hell
Lies.
It was. Like, and I was just like, oh my God, I'm like a completely different bloody person now, clearly. Yeah. But yeah, like, it was just bizarre how it just kept crawling up. And actually in like early teenage years, I look back now and I'm like, I was giving myself such a hard time and I looked fine, you know, and I'd kill to look like that again now. Like, I was way too hard on myself. But you only realise that, like, hindsight's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, hindsight is a wonderful thing. And I think everyone is guilty of that, especially for having like a bad body image day. Yeah. Looking at old photos and wishing that we had the same figure, but not putting two and two together of you were like 10 years younger then, like the habits that you inhabited then were borderline like psychotic. Like they were so disordered that obviously you don't see it at the time because it just seems like normal behaviour. But when you actually look at the size you are now and your personality traits that you have now and the way that you carry yourself, you wouldn't even dream of going back to how life was back then, even though it came with a smaller body.
Yeah.
To be fair, that segment's over quite nice, really, because I want to talk, well, a lot of our conversations have stemmed around, obviously, something you spoke about already about the PCOS.
So many.
And a lot of, let's call it the NHS's shortcomings, shall we? And GPs and things like that. And then your journey with fertility as well, especially when we're talking like late 20s to early to mid 30s, and how difficult that can be, especially with hormone imbalances like PCOS and then things like endometriosis and all that sort of stuff as well. So obviously we've just covered the fact that you've been within the dieting industry and the effect that that's had on you and having PCOS as well. If people don't know what PCOS is, and you've not been around this a lot, it's polycystic ovary syndrome. The problem that we end up having is when we come up against having someone that is plus size or in a bigger body, and then also having PCOS and struggling with weight, especially, then going to the GP or going to the NHS to look for some sort of solution, especially when you are trying for a family, it can become an absolute minefield. Not only because their first line of defence is, oh, well, you need to lose weight, which when you have a metabolic adaptation like PCOS that does affect your system, and it's not just as simple as calories in versus calories out, which obviously I know that I'm going to get people being like, well, that's how you lose weight, which is obviously true, but when you have an adaptation that makes it significantly harder and you have to be in a bigger deficit to create that weight loss, and you have someone going, oh, well, you just need to eat less and move more, like it's just that simple, it's super frustrating. So tell me about your journey, especially like within the last 6 months to a year, shall we call it, and how you're finding that at the minute.
Oh my God, there's like so much to unpick from what you said, but like, where do we begin? So yeah, I mean, with PCOS, no, actually, with being overweight, you walk into a GP surgery with a broken arm and they'll be like, lose weight. And you're like, are you kidding me? Like, really? And right, hands on heart, it depends what GP you get. And I've found a really good GP now. And she's also, I'd class her as plus size, right? And you know what? That's so comforting. Number one, she's a woman. Yeah. Number two, she's bigger. Yep. And that's great because she empathizes. And actually, she's the only one I've made any headway with, right? So like, I started to have mad cycles when I was younger, like crazy, like batshit, right? Like, we can swear on this, right?
Yeah,
100%. I don't need to filter it. But yeah, in like 15, they'd go on for like a whole month and I thought I was dying. And I was like, what is going on with me? I'd be doing PE class and I'd be like feeling sick and nauseous. And obviously, because it was taking like every ounce of energy I had left in me. And yeah, I went to the GP and they were like, here's the pill. It's fine, just go on the pill. It'll probably help you lose weight. Just go on the pill. And actually, like, you know, I think if there's obviously loads of research and there's loads of back and forth on it, but if there's anything that it's shown, and I think other women would agree who've been on the pill for a significant amount of time, is it does hinder your weight. Whether that is a direct effect from the pill or it's because it makes you more hungry, I have no idea, right? But it does. Whatever it does, it does something. And actually my weight went up and I was like, what the hell? Why have they done this to me? But it could also be the PCOS. I don't know. So yeah, it's a hormonal imbalance, right? So I've been doing quite a lot of thinking about the PCOS stuff recently because I think it's like 1 in 2 or 3 women have PCOS, but ultimately a lot of women don't get diagnosed with it until they try for a family. And that's because there's just sod all research on it and there's no money injected into it, and like GPs just kind of overlook it and they'll look at something else, right? Or just cover it up with the pill. And just like, have this.
Or ask Google, which is about as much use as a wet lemon.
Right, oh God, yeah, don't start me on that kind of stuff. But like, yeah, it's obviously a huge problem that affects so many women. And there's just not enough money put into funding research for it, which I think is a massive, massive downfall.
Especially when it's so prevalent now.
Exactly.
Out of our member base here, I can count at least 10 to 12 women in here
that does not surprise me at all.
Yeah.
And what really pisses me off is like people take one glance at you and they go, oh, you're plus size, you must eat.
You're lazy.
Yeah, you must eat like, I don't know, 10,000 calories a day to be like that. And it's not bloody possible, right? Like, but also like they overlook anything with a hormonal effect. And I know there's the whole thing, right? Everybody knows that if you eat less, then you're not going to put on weight in theory, right? But if you've got like hormones working against you and there's a massive imbalance, the problem is if you didn't know that you had that imbalance at the beginning, right? And you eat like, let's just say a normal person, right, who hasn't got PCOS, and your weight keeps going up. So if you're going on that journey and your weight's just going up and up and up, and you're like, what the hell? I'm eating like my friend who is a stick. Like, why am I like this? And the point where you get to doing something about it and learning that you've got a hormonal disorder or something like PCOS or endometriosis or whatever it may be, it's too late, right? Because then you're like, well, how the hell do I lose this weight? And then people judge you for it and they go like, you must eat those. When really you're like, no, I've eaten what I considered to be normal, right? But it does make you more hungry, absolutely. And you don't know how to battle that. So because of like GP's lack of knowledge or lack of research entirely on it, you're just left to fend for yourself. And I think in recent months where, I mean, I got diagnosed at 21 with it, which is from 15 to 21 struggling with it. I'd been across 2 countries, seen umpteen amount of doctors, and the doctor that diagnosed me with it was like, I've got PCOS. So I can see you're a walking textbook definition of it. Went to the hospital to the hormone specialist, endocrinologist, isn't it? I don't know.
Something like that.
But like walked in and he was like, oh my God, I don't even need to do any tests on you. Like I can see it. Because you get like excessive hair growth. Luckily I'm blonde. But you get excessive hair growth, the weight gain, it sits differently. You get like some hair loss with the hormones. Like, you know, like male pattern baldness, right? It can be like that. The weight gain, anxiety, and all of the mental health stuff just goes through the fucking roof with this. But I got diagnosed at 21. I'm still having issues and I've still got no clarity on it. And every time I see a GP, you're like, I've got PCOS and blah, blah, blah. And like where I'm very, very conscious that I'm definitely in the age bracket that you mentioned before. Like, you know, in my world, time's running out for fertility. So I've got to think about that. And to get a referral on the NHS is just something else at the minute. And I know it's completely strained, but I've had to go private to get anything seen to. And it's just a nightmare. I feel like other women who are struggling and they go, well, lose the weight and it will be so much easier. And you're like, cool, how? How do I do that?
There's one specific instance that I want to talk about. You know exactly what I'm going to say. It's the last GP trip that you took. And this, being in the fitness industry 8 years now, and obviously being in diet culture a hell of a lot longer than that, being within, like I spoke about on the last episode, of within that binge eating disorder and disordered eating mentality, this absolutely fucking blew my mind when Rach said about this to me. So she'd walked into the GP, asked about the best ways to conceive quicker, shall we put it, and
with PCOS.
Yeah, with PCOS. And here's the genuine feedback and tips that the GP gave her. The first one, which is a prerequisite for us anyway, was strength training. We've got that box to wear, like you're here 2 to 3 times a week.
Yeah, I was like, I'm doing that. I have been for like 2 years.
Perfect. Like, tick, cool. Second one, high protein diet. Perfect, lovely, like all on board with that.
It does work as well, it's great.
Here's where he fucking lost me, right? The next one, oh no, I lie. The next one was have sex more frequently. Obviously, God-given, like you're trying for a family. That's, you know, if you're having sex once a month, probably not going to get the job done.
No shit.
Yeah. Here is where he lost me, okay? So the next piece of advice that he gave Rachel was have a look at a diet that we usually prescribe for people that are diabetic, an 800 calorie a day diet.
Yep.
Now, you don't have to be a genius to work out that, one, as a female who has got a full-time job, a family,
and a desk job.
A high-pressure desk job, who is a fully grown adult, just to put it that way, to prescribe, and who has a tumultuous relationship with food from dieting culture, to prescribe that person 800 calories a day and then try and get them to strength train, have sex multiple times a week.
Survive.
Who the fuck's got the energy for that?
Like, no, just live. It's fine.
If I'm on 800 calories a day, you'll find me sat in a dark room, snapping at people, certainly nowhere near a barbell, and then if sex is brought up, I'm like, you can fuck right off.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, some like lunch deals have more than 800 calories. Like some of them are wild, like sandwiches or whatever. But like if you're a working person, you're grabbing something quick, you're like, oh great, that's my one meal a day. Done. Thanks, Doc.
And I know there's going to be some people out there that are like, well, if you eat less calorie food in higher volume, like what person do you know that can fit in 800 calories a day in a high protein, low carb situation that's just full of fruit and veg and like a steak's like 300 calories.
Yeah,
a piece of chicken's 300 calories.
Yeah.
So you're telling
Fruit's
me
got sugar.
Yeah,
like...
the rest of the day has got to be just salad. Like the only thing you will have lost by the end of that period is the will to fucking live. What did he say? It was like you'll lose about 15 kilos.
Oh yeah, like I said, I think my comeback was I went, God, that those people must be really depressed. Like, you know, that's miserable. Like how on earth do people do that and not keel over? Because that is just nothing, right? Like how do you have any energy? And he was like, oh well, yeah, they are like, you know, depressed, miserable, whatever. But actually after 3 months they've lost 15 kilos. And I'm like, holy
Great sales
shit,
pitch.
man. That is so much to lose in 3 months. But also it's like, so what, they start eating normally again and then they pile it all back on? Because I've been there, right? Like at uni I did, everybody will probably remember The Biggest Loser that was on telly, which was like really called out for like beating people to a pulp. And I went on 1,200 calories a day, and it was when I was at uni, so I was like walking everywhere, couldn't afford a car, couldn't barely afford a bus. So like, you know, I was like, well, I have to do this. Walking to and from uni, round and round, doing the gym like hard 5 days a week after uni. And I would probably eat like a snack at breakfast and then dinner, because I was in like Freshers and people would be like, oh, let's get a pizza. And you don't want to look like that knob, do you? That's like, oh, sorry.
Who sat there with Tupperware? Excuse me, let me microwave.
Let me get my lettuce. But ultimately it was like, oh my God, and there's so many freaking calories in that small pizza, and that didn't fill me up. And I was so poorly. And I remember going to the GP and I'd lost about 3 stone in so many months. And they were like, oh my God, you're smashing it. You're doing so well. Like, keep it up. And I was like, I feel like I'm dying. Like, what?
I feel like the Grim Reaper's following me on the walk to my halls. Like, I could drop dead literally at any minute.
I got Freshers flu like every few weeks. Jesus. I was like, oh my God, this is horrendous. Yeah. So yeah, Matt, I like, they need more research into this kind of thing. And I hate it when people like brush everyone with, what is it? Tarnish them with the same brush. Yeah. That's it. Because you can't just look at someone and be like, oh, you eat mountains of food a day. That is not it. There's something else at play. But God, even us with hormonal imbalances don't know what the hell is going on, because nobody has done enough research into it. And it was actually that one, there was another podcast that I listened to something, and they had a specialist on, and that opened my eyes. Like, nobody'd ever explained it like that before. And I was like, why don't medics do that?
Get these people in. Yeah, to give them the knowledge that they need to be able to hand that out to the wider audience.
Absolutely.
Who need the information, who need the science backing that to give them some answers and be able to give them steps to move forward, to be able to handle the situation better.
Yeah.
Rather than just give people surface information that looks like it might handle it on the surface, but then not address the deeper problems. And again, this is just a bloody lovely segue into other things that we've been talking about and that are ridiculously hot topics and fucking prevalent at the moment. Things like Ozempic, Mounjaro, and other weight loss interventions, shall we call them. I am so
excited to talk about them.
Do you know what? Obviously, I've been in the same situation of like when I felt at my lowest, thinking that my relationship with food couldn't be saved and that I couldn't be saved and that I needed some sort of intervention, like a gastric band or a gastric sleeve or just my mouth stapling shut, like whichever it was. I felt like I needed medical intervention because it didn't seem like there were any answers in my mindset and my relationship with food to be able to actually solve the problem.
Yeah.
And I laugh because I don't watch South Park anymore, but they hit the nail on the head so fucking well with things like this. And they ran an episode recently about Ozempic and like the incline of the people using it in people not being able to get a hold of it because there's so many celebrities misusing it and using it for just weight loss purposes, even though it is literally something that are prescribed to diabetics, and how it's become, again, like a fashion statement and just another quick fix to be able to get you physically the way that you want to be, but it still changes nothing. And like we have so many conversations about this of how the first step in being able to transform the way that you view yourself and the way that you treat yourself starts from the inside out. No diet has ever had the reverse effects, and people can come for me on that, but I absolutely stand by it. Even people that go through transformations nowadays with like transformation coaches, or they go on like Slimming World or whatever it is, and they drop a drastic amount of weight, if they still don't have any underpinning knowledge of how they've actually done it to sustain the results, but then to be able to get down to that deeper level of how you start to interact with food and why you choose food and why in the past you've relied on foods to fill certain gaps in your life and your emotions, then you essentially take something like Ozempic, or you get a gastric sleeve or a gastric band. And I'm not knocking anyone that's done it. Like, everyone has their own reasons for taking more drastic approaches, let's put it. But I can guarantee that 99% of the time, the weight just goes straight back on because they're not addressing the things of why they've got to where they are in the first place.
Yeah. This is what you know what, there's a bit of a challenge on it, but also I agree on the main part, but I think that, number one, it seems to have come out of bloody nowhere, doesn't it? But people have been using it for years and years and years for diabetes. And from my understanding of it, it blocks a hormone receptor, which makes you feel hungry, right? But surely there's a few things in my mind where I'm really interested to see like the outcome of this in like a year's
long-term
time
outcomes,
or whatever, because I know so many people on it at the minute, and like I'll talk about it and I'm like, oh, and it does tick away at the back of your mind, especially with something like PCOS. You're like, hang on, if it does shut off a hormone, can it help balance mine, right? So it's something that I know it's being researched at the minute for like the PCOS endometriosis kind of communities, but like there is research being done. I'd be very surprised if there wasn't, right? Because surely somebody's like, oh, we're seeing good effects here and we can help people when nothing else has worked, right? However, like the side effects of this thing are huge, right? And does anybody read, like, people know the side effects for diabetics who've used it, but people don't know the side effects long term of it for your average Joe who's
for non-diabetics,
right, who's using it at the minute. So I'm interested to see what that's like. And also from what you said as well, do you take it and it blocks your hunger and then you're absolutely starving if you come off it? So like, do you have to be on this thing forever? Like, what does it do to your internet? One of the main things for me is like, obviously my dad died of pancreatic cancer.
Yeah.
One of the big flags of it is it can increase pancreatitis, like hugely. And actually, there's a lot of GPs that won't prescribe it to you, because you do have to get it prescribed, obviously. You can't just like go and buy it from somewhere. Yeah, I mean, you probably can, but yeah. But like a pharmacist or someone has to assess you. But you've also got that they're measuring it with BMI, which I know we've had conversations, but ultimately it's just not, is it? It's not the one. There must be something else that they can like work with. I know it's like, oh, height, weight, nope, you're not right. And for me, they'd probably be like, you're definitely at the top end. We can 100% put you on this. And I actually spoke to a GP and I was like, right, I'm just interested. If I did go on Mounjaro, Wegovy, whatever, one of the million brands, what do you think? And she was like, oh, well, put it this way. The risks of you being the way you are for such a long time outweighs the risk of taking this injection.
Yeah.
And I'm like, does it?
I think it's more so the comment that the GP made as well of just because predominantly she looked at your BMI and said, actually, well, yeah.
Just to throw that in.
Well, you are more likely to have more health issues as you are now than taking whatever it is.
Yeah.
Is also there's health at every size. What I am saying though is that not every size is healthy, and it's a double-edged sword, because something I thought about recently was if you get to a size where you are not able to be an independent human anymore, and do things, like, ladies, you'll all appreciate this, shave down there. If you can't see it and you can't get to it, or like shaving your legs or anything like that for me,
or walk, or like do simple things,
or walk, or carry yourself without being so out of breath that you feel like you're gonna die. I'm not saying what annoys me the most is you can't look at someone and deem someone's health based on what they look like, because if I was to put myself in that person's shoes, the last time I weighed myself, which was a very, very long time ago, I think I was about 125 kilos, which in old money is like nearly 20 stone, something like that. Yeah, I was going to say,
I would not know what that is.
Every time I've been to the doctors, all my health markers are fine. I've got no cholesterol issues. My blood pressure's absolutely fine.
Yeah.
The only problems I have is with my knees after people running into them for 2 years and being under extremely heavy weights for Olympic lifting.
But they'll be like, lose weight.
Yeah. But in terms of people that would look at me or hear how much I weigh and put me on a scale, they'd be like, oh, you're morbidly obese, like, you're really unhealthy. And, like, it's not true.
No, it's not. And to your point as well that you were saying about just like, anyone taking these at the minute, like, yes, absolutely, if people really need it to get some weight off, to get healthy, cool, and to be able to exercise and to do what they want in life, great. I know someone, I'm not going to call them out.
No, we don't do that.
But like, they're super fit. Like, to look at them, they're built, they've got like a great physique. Like, people would look at them and be like, yeah, right?
You work hard, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And they do work out, and they've always been conscious of what they eat and stuff. They've gone to get this injection. I don't know which one it is. They're on it. And the pharmacist was like, yeah, your BMI is slightly over, so yeah, let's get you on it. I'm like, that could be muscle, that could be anything. And they literally did it from a photo, right? And I saw this person recently and they barely eat. And I'm like, how is that good? Like, that is crazy. And I know they'll monitor, so when their BMI gets down, they'll come off it. But I remember when my dad was poorly and he was like to me, this is my optimum weight. And he looked skeletal. And I was like, that is not I'm sorry, but like there's no way, like that whole system just needs a complete revamp, and people will start to think differently. But how on earth do you fix generations of people thinking this way? And it does impact you, doesn't it? Like you go around and people are looking at you, and there's always going to be the person that judges you. But yeah, I mean, something's got to give with it. And I think even a lot of medical professionals would agree that BMI is not a good measure.
I think it starts and ends with us now. Like, obviously, future generations coming in, we have to be able to lead from the front now.
Yeah.
And start to put down this old warped idea of, like, you can base someone's health on a size.
On an appearance.
Yeah, on an appearance.
But you can't judge a book by its cover.
Absolutely not. And for us, that's kind of why we do what we do, so that we can start to bring plus size women in particular in under our wing and show them a different way. Because if it's anything like what we've experienced, then I can't live with the fact that there's women out there that are still being subject to this.
Yeah.
And think that this is normal. So for us to be able to give them guidance on how actually they can live their best life at their healthiest, their strongest, their fittest, and their most body confident, then it's a win-win for us. And I think the more that this podcast grows as well, the more women we are going to be able to get on, just like yourself, but also other women within the industry that specialise in hormonal imbalances and female health and all these wonderful things, to be able to give us some more insight on well above what I know. I mean, because these guys specialise in it. Yeah. On methods to be able to improve your life significantly, rather than falling for the next marketing scheme, the next diet that pops up, the next TikTok trend that people jump on.
Social media.
Yeah, and just almost take your life back into your own hands, rather than leaving it in someone else's or some other companies to kind of do with it as they wish.
I love Big Strong Girls Club, but I think I feel the best I have in years. It escalated badly in the pandemic, right? Yeah. But from that point, I've never felt stronger or just better about myself. I have never, ever, ever, as long as I can remember, maybe I don't know, a dancing class or something, but I've never wanted to go somewhere to work out. And I think that's partly because I can see myself improving, but also because we have all these awesome women who come along to these classes, and they're all in the same boat, and you're all in the same boat, and everybody's on the same level, and they empathize. And there needs to be more Amy's across the country / world.
I'm trying.
But it does make a huge difference. But when you meet a community of people who are in the same boat as you, it's something you'll stick at, and that's the habit. You need to get those habits in for it to last. And I never, ever, ever thought I'd be talking about this now. No way. And I would love to look a different way, but ultimately I feel good in myself, and I feel much fitter than I ever have. And if this is the journey that I continue on, then cool.
I think especially with body image nowadays, we all have bad body image days. The time that it's taken us to get to the size that we are now, or the way that we look now, has not been a week. It's not been a month. It's not been a year. It's been a series of events over 10 years, 15 years that has accumulated to where we are now. But for me in particular, and I know that you'll agree with this as well, is that every day is a learning day.
Yeah.
How the brain works is you're not just going to wake up one day and go, oh, I love how I look. Ooh.
I never.
But there are days where we've turned up consistently, and this is something I messaged you about the other day when you had a bit of a meltdown.
Yeah. Regularly.
Yeah, it happens. About consistently doing the things that gives us the most confidence and gives us the most evidence of the work that we are doing making a difference. So whether it is coming and training and feeling stronger and feeling better when you walk out the door, whether it is eating for quality over quantity and enjoying the food that you eat and filling up that satiety and having the things that you want to eat as well as what you need, and doing the stuff that lights you up as well, like all the hobbies that you enjoy, that gives you that confidence so that when you look at yourself in the mirror, you're not looking at a reflection, you are looking at the person that you're becoming. And I feel like if you are not doing those things and you are just working towards becoming a smaller version of the person that stood in front of you, then you're always setting yourself up to fail, because you're not actually living the life that you want to live. You're living the life of a person that is just smaller. And it's a fucking minefield. So like when I said to you in that message of like every 2p that you put in the machine, not every day you're going to win big. Like we've all been to the seaside and been on those 2p machines where we've put one in and got really fucked off because nothing's dropped off. And then we've put another one in and then we, you know, what we know, £2 later of 2p's, still nothing's happened. And then we walk away and we never know if that next 2p could have been the one that absolutely paid out massively. And I think for us, that is a daily reoccurrence now of just putting those 2p's in. Again, whether it's sleep, whether it's training, whether it's the time that we spend with family, being present and in relationships, we know that we're building that confidence and trust and backing and belief within ourselves. And then when we go to look in the mirror, that's what's going to be reflected to us, rather than hoping to God that you look in the mirror and it being just based on what you're eating and what the scales are telling you, and basing your self-worth off of that, rather than basing your self-worth off of what kind of person that you are and how you're showing up. I think is the most important. If anyone was to take anything away from that, from this even, is that, and that everyone has a different journey, but we're all working towards the same thing.
Absolutely.
Even if it looks different on the face of it to begin with, we're all working towards becoming that stronger, fitter, happier and more body confident version of ourselves, not just a smaller version. It might end up being a byproduct of what you end up doing, but it doesn't end up being the main goal, especially when you find that what you're working towards is just happiness within your own body. This is why we're called the Big Strong Girls Club in the first place, because our tagline is, we are built for more. We are built for more than being a certain BMI. We are built for more than being in a bigger body. And being in a bigger body does not mean that you are not capable of doing things. Because I feel like I'm probably a prime example of that. Like, I've played American football, I've weightlifted, I've played paddle, I've dabbled in quite a few sports. And there's absolutely not been one point in time where I've thought, I am too big to do this. My body weight is going to be an issue. Apart from, obviously, weighted sports that are in certain like weight brackets, obviously God-given. But it becomes a personal mentality. If you become a victim to whatever size you are, you stop doing things because of that, then the mentality is the issue. Obviously, if it is a physical thing that you are like 400 pounds overweight, and you literally cannot move and you're bed bound, then again, different sides of the scale. But these extreme points of view and these extreme thoughts and extreme views that we have are the things that are stopping us from doing what we want. I'm sure we'll definitely cover this in other conversations on other episodes of the podcast in more detail. I feel like that's massively prevalent right now, and something that has to change going forward in order for people to really discover what it is that they actually want and get to where they want to be.
Agreed.
Well, I think that was a good way to end the podcast.
That's nice.
Well, it was lovely to have you on and hear your side of the story and how this industry has affected you and also the journey that you've come on in the last 2 years as well, which has been nothing short of awesome. And I shall see you in the next episode. If you haven't listened to the first episode, go over to the Spotify channel, have a listen to that, which is more on my story and why this was started in the first place. And I'll see you on the next episode.